So it's worth just touching on the 7 secret S's of training at this point. If you're going to do any sort of an exercise program, then more or less there are 7 major components to consider, and they are here. So you don't have to write them down. Stamina, speed, skill, surge, strength, suppleness, psychology, sleep, and sustenance. So I'll just say a little bit about each one. Stamina is probably the best known thing about exercise, and it's probably the one thing that most people focus on. Long-lasting exercise, typically running, swimming, cycling, that kind of thing, that's steady, generally quite repetitive, and lasts probably upwards of 20 minutes, but you can begin with even less if you're not used to it. Next one, speed. You can train for speed. You can train to become faster, and just by varying the exercise, you can change how quickly you can move. So if you just change the effect of gravity, for example. Next is strength training. Strength training is probably also one of the better known elements of training. We all might expect athletes to lift weights and that kind of thing, but it equally applies to somebody who's very frail, perhaps elderly, who's perhaps had a major injury or illness like a stroke or a head injury. The strength of muscles, the ones that are working, is very relevant. Strength training still needs to be done for people who are really quite frail. It's just a little bit more low-key. Suppleness or stretch. You do need a certain amount of flexibility for any exercise. If it can be improved, you can probably improve the quality of the exercise that you do. Psychology. Well, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a physiotherapist, so I won't go too deeply into it, but it's nevertheless in there. Psychology, or you might say it's about motivation to do the exercise. So the last 2 are sleep and sustenance. Sleep is great. It helps with any exercise program. If you're not getting sufficient good quality sleep, then any exercise program, whether you're a top international athlete or somebody struggling to get their first ability back to stand or to take a few steps, it's imperative that that's right. Sustenance is about nutrition, and so it's probably a little bit beyond the scope of this video, except to say that eat your greens. So I think we've got quite a bit in there. So here's just a quick reminder of some of the exercises that you can be doing to help yourself in the meantime. So very straightforward when you look at it on the surface, but there's a couple of little key coaching points. So we worked on ideas like, we called it Harry Worth exercises, where it's for loss of balance when the loss of balance is slow. So gradually, you can see him standing on pink foot, yellow foot, gradually has to go out further and further to counterbalance. Okay, stand on left foot, and pink foot has to lift further and further. Now the key thing is not just getting the leg to behave, but also head movement. So head movement is very, very key to our balance. Most people, if they haven't had any brain or nerve injury or illness, might need a little bit of coaching to actually tilt their head rather than begin to turn it as well as they turn over. So getting a very pure ability to tilt one ear towards one shoulder is extremely helpful, and when we go for a slow displacement loss of balance, the Harry Worth exercise, then you'll notice that my head comes back up towards vertical. Maybe not completely vertical, but towards it, so that my whole spine arcs in one direction or the other. For the next phase is fast displacement, and you'll see that it's good to start using some sort of support, either the back of a very sturdy chair or kitchen units, or perhaps even better in the corner section of a kitchen unit. Many people have got a corner rather than just one straight row. So quick displacement starts off with some training where, as you can see, my right foot, if you're looking at this film, it looks, and imagine it's a mirror image of you, your left crossing over in front of your right. So my pink foot crosses in front of my yellow. And of course, I want to do the opposite, where left foot comes in front of right. And these are movements that we very rarely use, but if they're not there, we don't have very good balance. So that starts off with training, using some support. Eventually, need to be able to do that freestanding. And as I do that, you'll notice that the same applies with the head movement. I'm exaggerating now, but my head is trying to come back towards vertical. Only very slight. So I can do that if I need to. It's very rarely used. Somebody actually really crashes into you in a pavement, walking along a busy high street, where you might have to do that. But if it isn't there, it's not there, then we haven't got the protection, and that is a big component of confidence, is underlying knowing that you've got that protection there if it's ultimately needed. So it's good to be able to do it in front. That's the most common one we'd use, but you might need to use it behind, where you step behind. You can see my pink foot's gone behind my yellow foot. Okay, and of course its opposite number. Okay, bit like dancing. Dancing's a great exercise. Slow displacement again. If we're displaced, gently pulled forwards there, it has to be counterbalanced by the heaviest part of our body, our hips and bottom, going backwards. And if we're displaced, if we're pushed here, we have to be able to arch a little bit backward. So head and shoulders go backwards. That obviously has to be counterbalanced by, again, the heaviest part going forward. So that's a little bit about writing and saving reactions, which are two of the three main components of balance. You've got writing, saving and equilibrium. Writing and saving reactions, as in this video we can retrain them. Equilibrium reactions keep our equilibrium. They're the ones that seem to keep us still. Okay, Standing here in the video, the main section of my body might seem still. It's not really moving around very much, but in fact it's just making smaller and smaller and smaller adjustments. So those are what I call equilibrium reactions, and equilibrium reactions, you can't exactly train them directly, but they are trained and they are learned through any movement. So a little bit more on fast displacement reactions. It's very, very nice to work against a wall or again sturdy kitchen units, and you can start off with feet. At the moment I've just got my feet about 10 inches away from the skirting board and learning to flick the body forward so that you're using the centre section, the heaviest section of the body, to control your balance. Okay. You could do it like that, which is using the head and shoulders, and many people with stroke and other brain injuries and illnesses will tend to try and control things from the head, when it's a lot more powerful to control from the middle. So you can do that, and you can progress it very simply by going further and further forward, further and further away from the wall with the feet. So this becomes a much harder exercise. And gradually you learn to do it looking up a bit instead of leading with head and shoulders like that. So it's nice to be able to do it forward. You can have a go at doing it sideways as well, against a wall or into the corner of kitchen units is also great. And you can also have a go at against a wall. Here you need to be a little bit closer so there's room for the hands, but if you've got the flexibility in your spine, gradually, as you progress, you get to needing your hands less. And that's a little bit about balance training in a nutshell.